Hello and welcome to Kalkine Media's Invest Nest webinar series. Now today we'll hear from three experts from the materials and battery space. My name is Rachel Jones. I'll be your moderator for today's event. Before going ahead with the session, it is important to remember that this webinar is for informational purposes only. It's not a solicitation or recommendation to engage in any investment activity under discussion. We're neither licensed nor qualified to provide investment advice through this platform. Now, the key idea of InvestNest webinar is to present a panel of experts to share information about their business, growth strategies, and their company's value and vision. We'll have 15 minutes of business presentation, followed by 5 minutes of questions and answers from the viewers. Now, webinar attendees can post their questions in the Q&A chat box during the webinar. If, due to time constraints, we're unable to take your questions live, you can send them through to us at info@kalkinemedia.com and we'll get your emails answered by our panelists. As we know, vast quantities of critical minerals are needed for clean energy generation. Now, companies involved in providing specialty minerals such as lithium and uranium have to watch the pace and scale up their operations to cater to the increasing global demand for zero-emission energy sources. Now, in this webinar, we'll focus on three ASX-listed companies that are supporting this transition with their advancements in the materials sector. Firstly, we have Tempest Minerals, a mineral exploration company with a diversified portfolio of projects in WA, highly prospective for precious base and energy metals. Now, the company aims to be a leading player in the mineral industry through its phenomenal work in sustainable business, innovation, and science. Secondly, we'll understand how specialty battery technology company Altech Batteries is revolutionizing energy storage and battery materials to support the energy transition from a fossil fuel carbon-based economy to a renewable energy economy. And next, we'll learn more about the multi-commodity company Haranga Resources. They're involved in developing highly prospective projects from feasibility through to large-scale production in West Africa. The company holds interests in a gold project and a uranium project in Senegal. I'm happy to introduce our speakers for the day, Mr. Don Smith, Managing Director of Tempest Minerals, Mr. Iggy Tan, Managing Director of Altech Batteries, and Mr. John Davis, Non-Executive Director of Haranga Resources. Now, firstly, let's start with Don Smith, Managing Director of Tempest. Geologist and entrepreneur Don has played the part of a founding director at many resource companies, including Platypus Resources and Alderon Resources. Currently, he's associated with a few startups and consults to the industry. Welcome to Kalkine Media's Invest Nest webinar, Don. If you would like to share your presentation deck and take over the virtual stage.
Thanks a lot, Rachel. I'll do that. Stand by. That's working, yes?
Excellent. Perfectly. Thank you.
Great. All right, welcome to the Tempest presentation. I'll go through the obligatory disclaimer there. Everyone can read that in their own time at their leisure. So I'm going to do a bit about our company first up. We're Western Australian based. We have a number of projects here in Western Australia. However, as we've been around for a few years now, we've had dealings and projects in other jurisdictions as well. And we still have commercial exposure to those. So we're extremely attractively priced at the moment, considering the value of the projects we have. And we have a very tight register there and a reasonable amount of cash in the bank and investments, which isn't reflected in that number on the screen. So I'll launch into a bit more about us. So we have a great board. You can see there's an array of highly experienced team there, notably Brian Moller as our chairman, who is famous for starting and being chairman of Sol Gold previously. And the other guys there have had non-trivial successes themselves as well. In terms of sustainability, It's a critical thing in the modern world. Despite the glowing intro from Rachel, I'm not going to focus on that too much at this moment. Apart from that, it is critical to our future as an industry, and also transitioning to this new low carbon environment. We have always, from the beginning, as a pure lithium explorer in 2017 till now, we've always upheld the highest standards of sustainability across environment, social, and corporate governance. So there's nothing new there that we have to talk about. It's just we're doing it. One thing I do want to point out is our focus on innovation. Certainly, that's a big part of what we're doing as a company. So we have a fully digital workplace, and we're using an array of new things. So you can see there's a box scan unit in the top left picture there that has automated what was 5 manual tasks in the past and turned it into one very easy thing. And so we put all our samples through that, and that data, objective data, goes straight into our database. So a bit about our projects. As I mentioned earlier, we're Western Australia focused. You can see the large red icon there, but we have commercial exposure. So through deals, cash flow, shares, this kinds of thing, we have exposure to a number of projects around the globe that you can see there. So back to Western Australia. Here on the left-hand side, we can see the array of projects that we're currently working on. We've got lithium, copper, gold, all the critical minerals there, and in a number of different locations, so that we have diversity and we can move around when we need to. So first up, I'm going to talk about the Yalgoo project. So that's about 1,000 square kilometers. It's a non-trivial project. It has all the infrastructure that you could possibly want. So the bars for exploration are quite low there. It's only 4 hours drive from Perth. It has power, water, rail, several highways, telecoms, the lot. And we've already proven that the historical geological interpretation in the area is not correct. And there's a lot more opportunity to find world-class base and precious metal and energy metal deposits here. And that's what I'm going to talk about in a moment. So we zoom in there, we can see there's an overview of our land holding with a number of the very serious projects that are in the region. So the geology previously was thought to be completed, and we've recently, in the last year or two, discovered that there's a whole new belt of the same rocks that host these world-class deposits, and no one's ever looked at them before. And we've done quite a bit of work over there in the last few years. And last year we had quite a high-profile discovery, even if it didn't have the greatest grade at the time, but it was the first hole into a brand new region. And yeah, all the holes that we've drilled so far have been mineralized. We've got base metals, precious metals, and critical minerals coming out of everywhere. So it's a bit of a first world problem to have, drilling lots of holes and getting mineralization. Now we're focused on honing in where the economic part of that is. There's an example of some of the drilling we did towards the end of last year, and you can see that the red is copper plus zinc. So if it was a normal copper value in the rock, it would be a thin grey line, and all those big red spikes show that we're onto something there. Excitingly, because this is a large project, we have many tens of kilometers of rocks that have never been explored. At the eastern end of our project, we have what's called the Remorse target. The Remorse target was discovered through soil sampling, so sampling the surface and looking at the chemistry of that. And we can see there that particularly the pink and blue colors on that diagram, that's very high grade copper and zinc, and very, very contiguous. So it's all in a nice layers, and that's very rare to see that in soil sampling. So we're very excited to get in and do some drilling probably next quarter. to find out what's under the ground there. And relatedly, mid this year, we flew a regional electromagnetic survey, EM survey, and that was done by helicopter, and it covered quite a large area, as you can see on the right-hand side of that image there. The green area, so we've only announced this today, the green area there is what we flew on this survey. And in our first round of processing, so we're running quite a number of different algorithms and processing techniques on this data. Our first round, we've come up with quite a number of quite compelling targets already. And some of those targets correlate quite strongly with targets that we had generated using other techniques such as magnetics and geochemistry and old-fashioned geology in the bush, and including the remorse target I mentioned before. So that's quite important. That's quite a compelling target from a surface standpoint. Now we're looking using geophysics, and we can see that there's a signal coming from below the ground as well. Moving on to our next project, which is in Mount Magnet. Mount Magnet is a prolific gold area in Australia. For those who aren't aware, many millions of ounces have been produced from here. We have a significant land holding in the middle of everything. So literally right abutting the billion-dollar market cap Ramelius Resources. That's the green on that picture there, on the right-hand side picture. And you can see there's quite a number of ongoing production targets or production centres right beside our project. And we know that there is gold on our project. We've discovered old workings that have quite a bit of gold in the tailings from those workings, and also our recent geochemistry is indicating that there's sizable targets. So that's another drilling target for early next year. This is a relatively new story. I haven't spoken about in presentations yet. We picked up some new ground earlier this year, and this is one of them. It's called the Five Wheels Project. So for anyone who's familiar with Rumble Resources or Strickland Resources, they've both made what appear to be world-class discoveries in the Irahidi region near Wiluna here in WA. And we were looking at the geology of this for quite a long time, and recently some ground became available, so we've grabbed hold of it. And if I go to the next slide there, you can see we're quite proximal to the Rumble discovery, and there's an important geological unit that so far appears to be the place to look for mineralization, and we believe that same geological structure goes through our Five Wheels project to the north there as well. So there's 260 kilometers of ground there, more than 50 kilometers of strike, and it's never been explored for base metals. It's previously been explored for iron ore, and some of the chemistry seems to have elevated base metals in the soil sampling. So I'm actually heading out there tomorrow to go and initiate field work and do some reconnaissance and start work on this project. So we're quite excited to get into that before Christmas and have some news flow for our listeners and investors. Similarly, we've picked up another project at the same time. This is called the Elephant Project. So this is a pure gold play at this stage, but it is very proximal to the world-class Tropicana deposit, which is on the boundary of the Albany-Fraser region and the Yilgarn region. So if we go to the next slide, you can see there's a giant structure, this blue color going down the middle of the screen here. That's the boundary between these two regions. That's an excellent place to find world-class deposits, and indeed that's where Tropicana and several other of the deposits on that screen are. At the Elephant Project, we have quite compelling geophysical anomaly, which is reminiscent of other major deposits in the region. And there's also an 8-kilometer gold geochemical anomaly at the surface. So that is enormous. And that's where, I guess, the name of the project comes from. So we're currently completing that deal. And when the conditions precedent and the transaction's been completed, I'll have more news for everyone on that one. But of course, next year we'll be getting into that one as soon as possible, getting drilling and other work done. So stand by on that one. You may have noticed earlier on the world map that we have exposure to a project in PNG. So we made a investment in this, $1 million last year, and this company is about to list on the ASX at a substantial premium to that price. It's a world-class deposit. It was mined for several decades previously at an astounding grade of half an ounce, about 15 grams per ton. And yeah, we're really looking forward to seeing some action there. And I know that there's quite a likelihood that is going to, that resource that you can see there, it's about 500,000 ounces. I wouldn't be surprised if that doubles in the coming years, and that gets back into production. So it's all part of our growth strategy of not just exploring, but also getting closer to being a producer and a developer. As I mentioned earlier, we were originally a lithium exploration company, and as such, we still have quite an exposure to that commodity. And it's, as I'm sure Iggy and others are going to tell us later in this presentation, that it's critical to that transformation to a energy storage and that kind of thing. So if we look here, we've got our main lithium exploration project is called Rocky Hill. So that's only about an hour away from Perth. And previous work that we've done there, we've done some soil sampling there also, had quite substantial lithium, 60 plus ppm in soils, which is very serious. We're currently waiting on a TEMP to be granted there so that we can expand this project significantly and get into some more exploration there. This is part of the southwest terrain, which is one of the main geological provinces in Western Australia where people are looking for lithium right now. As I mentioned, we also have commercial exposure to some other lithium projects around the world, including the high-profile Argosy project there in Nevada. We're also investigating ways that we can create greater value through our lithium projects to get more value to the shareholders. And there'll be more news on that coming out this or early next year. All right, so in terms of what's coming up from Tempest, we can say we've got a bit of a Gantt chart there for everyone to look at. At the very minimum, we have a number of field campaigns planned for the rest of this quarter, and then early next year we'll be going straight into more field work and potentially some drilling pending some approvals and other things that we're waiting for currently. So plenty of exciting news flow for investors and observers to coming. And if anyone is attending one of these events that you can see at the bottom, for example, I'll be at IMARC in 2 weeks in Sydney. I'd love to have a chat, so come and talk to me at any of those events. So reiterating what I've said, very modest value explorer right now, considering the great value that we have on our books, and we've got a lot of news flow coming up. We're also de-risked, so we're multi-commodity. We're not at the behest of whatever's fashionable in the market from month to month. If you want to find out more about Tempest Minerals, make sure that you drop by our website, and particularly there we have our investor hub, where there's me speaking on video for every announcement that we put out, and also we've got some docu-series there called Inside Tempest, where you can learn more about how we work and what we're doing. That's it. Thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you so much there, Don Smith, for that really interesting presentation. It definitely seems like you have a lot going on, particularly for next year. It'll be very interesting to see all the new things that you have working out for you there. Now, we are moving on next now to Mr. Iggy Tan, Mr. Iggy Tan is the Managing Director of Altech Batteries, a highly skilled mining and chemical executive. He holds over 3 decades of experience in commercial mining projects. Now, he's been involved in the commissioning and startup of 7 resource projects in Australia and overseas. So welcome to Kalkine Media's Invest Nest webinar, Mr. Iggy Tan. If you would like to share your presentation.
Thank you for having me.
Great to see you.
If everybody can see that, what's the future of grid storage batteries? Now, if you think about the future of lithium-ion batteries, they're all moving towards solid-state technology. And just a bit of an explanation what solid-state technology is. In a lithium battery, you've got the cathode and the anode, and in between there's a liquid electrolyte, which is actually flammable. And that's been causing some battery fires around the world. So the industry is moving to solid state, where they replace the liquid electrolyte with a solid ceramic, and the ceramic allows the lithium ions to go back and forth. What we see, some of the issues around the world is fires. Lithium batteries are causing some concern with battery fires and so on. So there are some of the safety issues. When you have a lithium battery fire, it's generally called thermal runaway, and there's a lot of overheating. And what's different about a lithium battery fire is that it's very difficult to put out because it generates oxygen at the cathode end. So that's one of the challenges of the battery fires. Lithium batteries only operate in a very limited temperature range, so between 15 and 35 degrees. But when it gets very cold, the liquid electrolyte slows down, and the battery actually slows its capacity. So that's one of the other challenges. The industry generally accepts that the life of these batteries are between 8 to 10 years. And the reason for that is that lithium degrades every time you charge and discharge a battery. So when you're talking about grid storage batteries, you want batteries beyond that 10-year life. There's also concerns about the price of the critical metals. In lithium, the price has gone up 3 to 4 times in the last 2 years. So that's a concern for the lithium battery industry. Cobalt, 70% of cobalt comes from the Republic of Congo, and there are child labor issues. So the industry is concerned about ethical supply. One country produces all the graphite of the industry. So China produces 90% of graphite material for the world battery industry, and that represents a geopolitical concern for the industry. And then finally, copper. There is a copper crunch. There's enough studies that show there's not enough copper mines being built to service the forecast for EVs. So is there a battery that is actually fireproof, has a large temperature range, life beyond 15 years with no lithium, no cobalt, no graphite, no copper, and no manganese? And introducing you to the Serenergy batteries. The technology was developed by the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany. Over 8 years, they spent nearly 35 million euros. And essentially, there are salt batteries, sodium chloride, and solid-state technology. So I mentioned about solid-state previously. These batteries, because they use a ceramic tube instead of the liquid electrolyte, is totally fireproof, which is a big benefit to the industry. They operate in a very wide temperature range, down to minus 40 degrees and up to 60 degrees. And the reason it can operate at those temperatures, because internally the battery is about 270 degrees. It's fully insulated, so you can actually touch it on the outside. But it's the analogy, it's a bit like a mammal. It's got its own temperature regulation. The life of the battery is beyond 10 years because the sodium doesn't degrade every time you charge and discharge the battery. So well over 15-year life. And the most important thing, we use sodium chloride. Sodium is a very reactive material like lithium. It's just under lithium on the periodic table. And it's very readily available. It's cheap. And really we feel that that's the technology for grid storage batteries. We don't have any cobalt in the batteries. The chemistry doesn't require any cobalt. And we also don't have any graphite or copper. In fact, we don't have any anodes in the battery. It forms the anode when it charges the battery, and then it dissolves the anode when it discharges the battery. So it's a self-forming anode. So hence, there's no copper or graphite required. And then finally, how the battery works. I mean, the video is not working at the moment, but I'll just talk you through it. It's a ceramic tube, and within that tube, we're filled with salt and nickel metal powder. There's a positive probe, and the battery sits in a metal cylinder. So if we compare the battery with lithium-ion battery, a very similar energy density. It has very good conversion. The cycle life, as I mentioned, is nearly double. Very safe in that it's totally fireproof, and it operates in a very wide temperature range. The most important thing about the batteries is that it has a very low maintenance cost. So in a Tesla Megapack, there's something like 26 cooling fans and 2 air conditioners trying to keep the battery cool. And this also happens in your electric vehicle with lithium-ion batteries. Our batteries maintain the temperature when you charge and discharge the batteries. Where we sit on the curve, this is the curve where you can compare the batteries. On the bottom axis is how much energy the battery can deliver. On the vertical axis is how much power the battery can deliver. So if you look at the red curve, that's lithium-ion batteries. On the left-hand side is the very powerful nickel cobalt batteries, which you need a lot of power quickly. And then at the bottom of that is the lithium iron phosphate batteries. They're all lithium batteries, but as you would know, Tesla has announced that all their vehicles are moving to LFP batteries because they're much safer and much cheaper. Our batteries sit in the middle. We can produce power as well as energy. The sector that we are focusing on is in the grid storage market. The grid storage market is expected to grow at 28% year on year, from 4 billion expected to be about 15 billion by 2025, and then climbing to about 150 billion by 2030. As Elon Musk from Tesla says, their growth they see in the future with their battery division will come from the grid storage market. Now, let me explain to you what is a grid storage battery. Essentially, Australia has a third of the households in Australia have solar panels. And during the day, we generate electricity. Because we generate electricity, our demand is also down. So demand during the day is down. And there is actually a surplus of renewable energy during the day. So in California, they actually have to discharge 3 billion worth of renewable energy every year to the ground. In Germany, about $2 billion is wasted. I read an article that in Australia, 30% of renewable energy is actually discharged to the ground. And the reason for that is that there is no storage. So if you could charge batteries that is connected to the grid during the day and then discharge it during the night, that is grid storage battery. So it's essentially energy shifting from the day to the night. And a lot of the households that have solar panels also want some batteries, but today the cost of the batteries are too prohibitive. We're ready to commercialize this technology. The Fraunhofer Institute have built a pilot plant and started producing these batteries. They've spent nearly 25 million euros in its development. So we're not a startup. We're actually commercializing technology that's already around. And we're building a 100 megawatt project in Saxony, Germany, where we own 75% of the joint venture, and Fraunhofer 25%. We're located in east part of Germany, and we are well away. We're just about to launch the definitive feasibility study for this plan. As you can see, there is a lot of automation and robotics that is designed in the plan. We're producing these cells at about 1 every 45 seconds. This is what the product looks like. It's a 60 kilowatt battery pack, rated at about 100 amps and 600 volts. There are 240 of these cells. You can see a picture of those cells up the top right-hand corner. These battery packs will then go into sea containers, pre-assembled, and we call these our 1 megawatt grid packs. The idea of this is that you can deliver to site already prefabricated and assembled, drop it on the deck, and plug and play. So within 5 minutes of delivery, you have 1 megawatt connected to your grid supply. So as I mentioned, grid storage batteries are essentially energy shifting the energy from the day to the nighttime. That's what our 1 megawatt grid pack looks like. And we have some vision of the battery production. This is a picture of one of these cells. The plan is that we will shortly issue the definitive feasibility study. We'll look at off-takers and then start to look at funding for the project. So that is to answer the question, that is the future of grid storage batteries.
Thank you so much there, Mr. Iggy Tan, for that insightful presentation. Obviously, all companies are moving very much so with the times. Next, we're moving on to Mr. John Davis. He's the Non-Executive Director of Haranga Resources. Now, Mr. Davis is a geologist with more than 30 years' experience in mineral exploration and development here in Australia and in South Africa. That includes gold, base metals, and rare metals. He has extensive experience in the gold sector, from regional exploration and resource development to production. Welcome to Kalkine Media's Invest Nest webinar, Mr. John Davis. Now, if you would like to share your presentation deck and take over our virtual stage.
Thanks, Rachel. Good morning and afternoon, everybody. Moving through the Haranga presentation, we'll start with the disclaimer, and I'll give you an opportunity to read that at some point. Investment highlights we'll start with here, and obviously a bit about the background of Haranga. Haranga listed on the ASX in January 2022, that's January last year, with a focus on uranium and gold projects in West Africa, more specifically in Senegal, which we'll get to shortly. And the interesting part, and I think part of the investment highlights, are the fact that uranium prices continue to perform very strongly in 2023, with the spot price up more than 30%, up to in excess of $72 a pound for uranium. Our projects, we had some prior exploration being completed with over 68,000 metres of drilling, radiometric surveys, magnetic surveys, etc. at our Soraya project, which I'll get into in a bit more detail later. But this data enabled us to review and validate and, in fact, report a maiden resource estimate, mineral resource estimate under JORC Code 2012 only in September, just last month. Over 16 million pounds inferred. Senegal has a very stable government, good infrastructure, numerous operating gold mines, providing good infrastructure and access, skilled labour, sealed roads, etc. In fact, there's over 40 million ounces of gold in resources and production in Senegal as we speak. The gold potential also is significant and as well as uranium, and the structures have led to a significant project at Ebel South, which we'll also discuss in a bit of detail. Significantly, in-country costs are very low when it comes to exploration work, and we have a very experienced board and management team with significant industry experience from exploration to production, including uranium in Africa and associated with ASX-listed companies. We have on-the-ground West African-based staff with regional and historic understanding, which is a great benefit to our projects. Just a bit of company information. The current share price is around 15 or 16 cents. We have 75 million shares on issue, quite a small, tightly held share structure. We have a market cap of around $12 million and cash on hand currently 1.65 million, although there's another 1.2 million to be subject to shareholder approval in the near future. The board, as mentioned, we have a strong board. Peter Batten, our managing director, who was going to be presenting today, unfortunately is in Senegal as we speak, looking at our next upcoming drilling programs. Peter was a founding managing director of Bannerman Resources in Namibia. And of course, Bannerman are currently still producing uranium and so on. So he has a very strong uranium background, and that'll be a great benefit, obviously, to Haranga as we go forward. Non-executive Hendrik Schlomen, he's also based in Africa, in Cape Town. And on the ground, our COO is a lot of experience and lived more than 20 years in Senegal, based in Dakar. And he is the manager of all our exploration efforts in Senegal. And our non-executive chairman, Michael Davey, a businessman based in Perth. Global uranium demand is soaring, and this is not something new, and it's been discussed, and we'll add more to that as we move through the slides. I'll leave this slide till later. Interestingly enough, investment in nuclear energy is significant. Currently, there is world nuclear reactors currently operating 438. There's 58 under construction, and there's another 104 being planned. And the Chinese have currently 55 operating reactors, 21 under construction, and 47 planned. So, and if you look around that slide, you'll see the countries that have current producing nuclear reactors, and very positive, and lots of expansion going on. So there's a big move and demand for nuclear power. Just looking at the uranium price, from around mid-2021, where the price was sitting around $30 a pound, as I mentioned earlier, it's now moved up to over $72 US a pound over the last 12 to 18 months. Senegal, just briefly, it gained independence from France in 1960. It's a very democratic country, very politically stable. The population is around 17 million, various ethnic groups. The capital city is Dakar, which is the most populous urban centre, and has made significant investments in infrastructure and development, and significant progress in reliability of supply of electricity, etc. Going on with Senegal, it's got a very strong mining code, very pro-mining, which was developed in 2017. It's a very positive, and as I mentioned earlier, there are some significant gold projects in production, being led by Endeavour Mining, Resolute, Chessa, and Managem, producing significant amounts of gold, particularly in the southeastern part of Senegal, as you can see on that plan. Now, moving to our Soraya Uranium project. It's a joint venture between Haranga 70% and Mandinga Resources 30%, and they have a free carried to PFS and relates to an exploration permit, which you can see on the plan to the right there, which covers an area of 1,650 square kilometres. So it's a very significant area over the Soraya granite. The ground was partially explored by French giants Arriva and Kojima prior to 2010, and the uranium mineralisation was identified. The uranium price fell significantly, so those companies withdrew from the project. Haranga acquired the project as part of the listing of Haranga last year and have been exploring since. I guess very importantly, historic drilling totaled some 68,000 metres of combined RC, diamond, drilling, etc. And Haranga has used that information to come up with the current resource, as mentioned earlier. All the drilling really sits above 160 vertical metres, so very shallow at this point. So the potential for extensions is significant. As I mentioned, the project, all the historical data has been verified, and in fact, Haranga drilled 22 diamond holes in 2022 for over 3,000 metres of core drilling and generated a mineral resource estimate following that work, and which outlined over 16 million pounds of contained EU308 at a grade of 587 ppm, EU308, which is significantly high grade, which translates into 7,300 tonnes of contained uranium metal. So a very robust project, and more significantly, you'll see in the following slide, the Soraya prospect, where that resource is located, is in the centre of that slide on the right, Soraya. There are another 6 significant coincident radiometric surface geochemical anomalies of all greater tenor than the Soraya resource prospect. These have not been drilled to any extent and are going to form the basis of the ongoing exploration. So the upside for significant further resource definition on this project is we believe to be very significant. Moving on, we mentioned earlier that we have a gold project called Ebel South, which is located not far from the Soraya uranium project, and you can see that on the far side of that slide down in the southwest corner. We have approximately 2.5 kilometre strike length here of significant gold anomalism up to 643 ppb gold, which is in fact about half a gram. So at surface, also on the project, there is significant artisanal workings, and so showing strong evidence of gold mineralisation. And as I mentioned earlier, there's significant gold mineralisation in the district in that southeastern corner of Senegal, with significant gold producing projects. Just looking at a project timeline for the Soraya uranium project. Later this, as I said, our Managing Director, Peter Batten, is currently on site. We're looking at coming out of the wet season with metallurgical test work, further drilling, upgrading the resource, and so on through next year. And we believe that we will have a new resource at least classified under the indicated category next year. So we've got a lot of news flow to come out, moving through those various aspects of exploration on the Soraya project. In a summary, in terms of the project, Senegal is a stable geopolitical location with pro-mining and government, with fairly recent updated mining laws in 2017. Haranga has a maiden mineral resource of estimate of 16 million pounds inferred at 587 ppm EU308 for Soraya. And it's the first, as I mentioned, of 6 known radiometric and geochemical anomalies to be explored in Senegal over the next year. 3 of the remaining anomalies will be drill ready by late November. And more significantly, as part of this whole process, global uranium demand is increasing, as seen in the plus 30% increase in the spot price, and utilities returning to long-term contracts. The world's embracing nuclear power for its clean, carbon-free electricity generating capabilities, and with a true baseload component of 24/7, 365-day reliability. The West's becoming conscious of the vulnerability inherent in outsourcing power generation. And so Haranga's Senegal-based team is able to move quickly on any opportunities that present itself within Africa, and specifically West Africa. And of course, the Ebel South gold prospect, with anomalous gold results in a fertile gold territory, are also drill ready. So that's a summary of Haranga and where we're at. Very exciting times, having just produced a maiden mineral resource estimate for uranium and of significantly high grade, and with a huge upside for further discovery and increasing resources moving forward. Thank you, Rachel.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mr. John Davis. And send our wishes to Mr. Batten. Sorry he couldn't be with us today, but it was great to have you talking through the presentation there. That was fabulous. So now we're going to go to our Q&A from the audience. So first up, back to you, Don. We have a message through here from Mr. Mike Noon. He's messaged in to say, does current market scenario have any kind of impact to your projects?
That's somewhat of a vague question, but yeah, always the world macroeconomics always affects every mineral company. That's just the way it works. I mentioned during the presentation that I'm always very focused on being a poly-commodity explorer, and for that reason, so that we're not at the whim of the market, and we can be agile if required. So at the moment, we don't see any big effect on what we're doing at Tempest with the world changes, the conflicts, and all the other things that's happening. But that is possible. One of the possible, I guess, ironically, one of the possible outcomes is that the price of gold might actually go to where it should be, instead of being somewhat lower than everyone thinks it should be right now.
Well, just on that note as well, we've had someone else ask about what you feel is the importance of gold. I think here they're probably referring to your PNG project. What can you tell us about gold and the importance from the project you have in Papua New Guinea?
Specifically in Papua New Guinea, that's the primary commodity there. It's Papua New Guinea's produced a huge percentage of the world's gold. The world's biggest gold mine is there in Freeport. Yeah, and we think there's a great opportunity for that project to expand, because currently it's it could be the tip of the iceberg. It's well known to be an epithermal deposit, but no one's looked around or underneath that. So there could be mega giant porphyries and other types of things floating around underneath it, and certainly some of the geology supports that. So yeah, gold's critical to that project. That is what it is.
Fantastic. Excellent. Thanks, Don, for answering those questions. Just going back to the audience, do we still have Mr. Iggy Tan with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi there. We've had a question come through from one of our audience members, wants to know how important copper do you believe, how important copper is for the future?
Yeah, there is 2.5 times more copper in an electric vehicle compared to a normal ICE vehicle. So copper is a critical material. Copper is also in lithium batteries as the anode collector. You know, there's enough studies that show there's not enough copper mines being developed to even meet the EV demand, not let alone the grid storage demand. So copper is a critical material.
Thank you. And we've got another question for you, if you're happy to answer, from Mr. Stefan John has asked, as other entrants come into the lithium battery market, do you believe we may be seeing more lithium fires in the future?
More lithium. Sorry, I missed that last bit.
Sorry, lithium battery fires in the future. Could we see more of them, even though I know you're doing work to help with regards to fires? As more entrants come into the lithium world, do you think there will be more lithium battery fires?
I've said that the lithium battery is a great battery and it's not going to go away. I also chair a lithium company. So the lithium battery is a great battery. And to be fair, when there's a lithium battery fire, is all over the news. But there's plenty of fires from petrol engines, but they don't get on the news. So if you think in the long term, the lithium battery fire is just happens to be the topic today, but they are great batteries.
Excellent. And just moving on to Mr. John Davis now, we have a couple of questions coming up for you. I'm just looking through to see if I can see a name. Sorry, we have, do you expect other opportunities to pop up in Senegal for Haranga?
Thanks, Rachel. Yes, certainly. We've been reviewing a number of other projects, and certainly in the lithium space as well. The historic exploration for lithium-based mineralisation has been very minimal in this part of the world, and particularly around this Soraya granite, there are some certainly footprint information from historical surveys that indicate pathfinders that could suggest certainly lithium-based mineralisation, pegmatites potential. Certainly, we've tied up pretty much the main basis of the uranium potential in the southeastern corner of Senegal, but also the further gold potential is significant, and we're certainly looking on all those aspects.
Excellent, thank you. And sticking with you, John, how much do you believe we will see with the growth of uranium?
Well, I mean, it has come with a bit of history, obviously, but that aside, and I think that's pretty much passed us by, that the big thing with uranium and the footprint of a uranium plant is significantly smaller than, and as I've said before, there's basically no emissions, zero emissions, and so on. So I think the move has to go towards uranium, and just on the basis of there is a lot of it around, particularly in Australia also, and there are a lot of plants out there that are crying out for feedstock from explorers who may be producing yellowcake, which is sold on to nuclear power plants for concentration and so on. So I think the scope to advance with uranium now is being seen, and we'll certainly see a big move in that way going forward.
Excellent. Thanks for your answers there, John. Just finally, one last question. Coming back to you again, Don. Sam Henderson is asking, he would like to know whether TEMP Prime will their prime focus would be to invest more in gold projects, or is it lithium projects you'll be focusing on more?
We're not overly commodity focused, to be honest. But certainly precious and base metals are more of a focus at the moment than lithium. Yeah.
Excellent. And just on that note, Don, would you like to give our audience some closing remarks on your presentation from today?
Sure thing. One thing that we didn't speak a huge amount in the presentation was copper, and we have a somewhat of a focus on copper at our Malaya area in particular. Iggy touched on this a moment ago, that there's a gross shortage coming in that, and the supply and demand are completely apart from each other. So I think that's a great opportunity for companies like Tempest who are quite leveraged to that and have a great opportunity. We're keen to grow as a company and do lots of new things and build new projects. And hopefully our value will reflect that as we go forward.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Don. And going back to John, would you like to just conclude with some closing remarks?
Thanks, Rachel. Yes, I think one of the comments regarding Haranga is a fairly a young company, only listed approximately just over 18 months ago. We've had some immediate success in outlining a mineral resource estimate for uranium under JORC Code 2012, and we are moving forward on a number of fronts, obviously expanding on the uranium base, the gold base in Senegal, but we're also looking for other streamlined projects that are going to add to our portfolio as we move forward. So I think it's relatively early stage for Haranga, but we're moving forward quickly and intend to continue in that vein.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you very much, Mr. Don Smith, Mr. Iggy Tan, and Mr. John Davis. On behalf of Kalkine Media, I'd like to thank our audience and our presenters for their meaningful insights and for answering any queries with such great analysis. Now, on this note, I'd like to thank our audience for attending the webinar. We hope each one found this session informative. And if you want to delve any further into the equity market, if for any updates, if our audience could visit at our media site, www.kalkinemedia.com/au. Also visit our equity research website, www.kalkine.com.au. You can email us if you have any more questions, info@kalkinemedia.com. Stay tuned for Kalkine Media for our upcoming Invest Nest series. Thank you so much for attending today, and thank you so much for our presenters. Have a great day. Thanks, guys.